This is Women with Books, a collection of conversations about your favorite books, media, and all of the fabulous things in life. Curated by me, author Lindsay Emory. I'm so glad you're a part of today's chat. Hey everyone, welcome to Women with Books. It's me, Lindsay. I'm doing a summer wrap-up episode, a solo episode, just me, myself, and moi. And it's kind of exciting to get to talk to you. I don't know if anyone noticed, but the last two episodes with Carrie Winfrey and Kristen Higgins, I did not do intros. Usually on my podcast, I do a little intro and then I do a little music and then I go into the interview. But when I was doing Carrie and Kristen's, I had this summer cold that was going on, and I was coughing and I just did not sound like my normal self. And I mean, I did have things to tell you guys about, but I was kind of also just deliberating and intellecting and thinking about them. And I knew that I was going to have this last episode to be kind of just you and me and talking, a solo episode. So I just kind of saved all my thoughts and updates and stuff. But I hope you've had a great summer. I can't believe, I'm recording this the last week of August and looking at Labor Day in September. And every day I wake up and I'm praying to feel that first cold fall air, that, the way it just all of a sudden changes. You can smell it in the air. And I haven't felt that yet in Dallas, Texas, but any day now. And I know we're having climate change and everything, but there's going to be I have faith that there are going to be certain laws of the universe that will not change. And one of those is that the northern hemisphere goes farther away from the sun in our winter, or at least half the year, and it has to get cooler. It has to. I have this unshakable faith that the earth will tilt. If the earth stops tilting, then yeah, we're all done. But until then, I know that as the days creep into September and October, one of these days we will say, oh, isn't it nice? It's a lovely 85 degrees in Dallas. Oh, well, I'm assuming if you're a longtime listener or if you're just picking this up today, hello. But I challenged my audience at the beginning of the summer to have a summer reading challenge, and I identified 8 categories of books, and you could pick and choose which you wanted to do even, or and what books you wanted to plug in what category. I left them very subjective, I thought, this year. Because, I don't know what you like to read. I don't know what you wanted to read when you're at the beach. I've talked about this before with so many of my guests. There are things that we typically think of as, quote, beach reads or summer reads, but I've also been known to read mysteries, and I like to read really things that are set in cold climates when I'm by the pool. That's my weird thing. So, if I said have a beach read, that's for you to interpret it as you will. I don't think I had, quote, a beach read. I think I said a scene with a beach cover on it, because that is, of course, one of the questions we ask in the lightning round. So I just wanted to kind of go over my reads for summer 2019 and then kind of talk about what I have coming up and what we are going to be looking at in the next few months. So let's get started. The Summer Reading Challenge for 2019. I'll just kind of go over the categories first. I had Pretty Dress Cover, which I think is kind of a, I don't know. It's a type of cover, right? You look on a bookshelf, you might see one with like sisters on a beach or women on a beach. You might see one with pretty dresses, and then you're going to see one with like a boy and a girl kissing or abs or something. We've got categories, right, of covers. So I challenged you to pick a book with a pretty dress on it. I challenged you to read something from a debut author. which might have taken a little bit of research, I understand, but I did suggest books at the beginning of the summer on my blog. So if you're on my newsletter, I will send out the challenge blog and the wrap-up blog post, or you could just go to lindsay.emory.com/blog and find all this. Anyway, okay. Let's see. Number 3, I challenged you to read a book with a beach scene or a beach cover on it. Number 4, I challenged you to read something that was diverse or inclusive. Again, that's a fairly broad thing. And, I don't know what you came up with, but I'll tell you what I came up with. Then number 5, I said something off your TBR list. Now, TBR, of course, means to be read list. And that could be either like the stack of books you have on your bookcase that's been waiting for you, or like for me, I keep a list in Amazon too of the things I'm going to buy one day, the books I'm going to buy. All right, the next one was a comfort read. And this is another one of those subjective ones. I didn't know what you might find comfortable. It could be a reread. I didn't want everyone to have to buy new books for this. So it could be something that just made you feel good and was comforting to you. The next one, number 7, was I challenged you to pick a new genre. If you normally read romance, maybe you read a mystery. If you normally read mystery, maybe you picked a fantasy. I don't know. I'll tell you what I did. And then finally, I challenged to pick a book by a former Women with Books guest. Y'all, this should have been really easy because I've had at least 40, 50 authors on this podcast. So, and I've got them all the episodes and a lot of their books on various places. All you had to do was go to womenwithbooks.com. So I don't know which one you picked, but I will tell you which one I picked. So we'll go ahead and get started. For the pretty dress cover, I read The Golden Hour by Beatrice Williams. And this is one of those books that I've thought about all summer long. When I first picked it, I picked it because it was supposedly going to be a historical fiction set in the Bahamas during World War II. And I knew that the Duke and Duchess of Windsor were kind of side characters in the book. So I'm like, perfect. Historical women's fiction, beautiful cover, Beatrice Williams, and royals. I knew it was going to be right up my alley. But there was so much more to it. There was so much more to it. There was a whole nother historical timeline that I need people in my life to go read and then talk to me about it. I have told multiple people, including my own book club, this is a book club book if there ever was a book club book, because there's just some banana pants craziness things that happen, but you need to talk about it with someone. So, pretty dress cover, highly recommend The Golden Hour by Beatrice Williams. Debut author. What did I pick for debut author? I had a bunch of ones that I recommended, but I ended up, after I just saw people gushing about this book all summer long, was Red, White, and Royal Blue by Casey McQuiston. And this book just brings a smile to my face because it is, I don't know, it was just adorable. And I felt like there were real people that I still am thinking about. There were a couple things about it that I had seen some reviews that people weren't sure about, but for a fun summer read and just completely escape. It took you out of the current world altogether. It was a great pick. Let's see. The next one was a beach cover, and this one, technically, we'll say it's a beach. I mean, I didn't see there's no sand in this, but you can obviously see it's a beachy cover. The Southern Side of Paradise by Christy Woodson Harvey. Christy's also been a guest on Women with Books last year, and this was the 3rd in her Peachtree Bluff series. So I had to finish up the series and see how it all ended up. This series, I don't think she's continuing it, but she could, or go off on another direction, this could also be a comfort read, because going back to Peachtree Bluff and getting involved with this family again, it's just multi-layered family saga that's got humor and heart and romance, and it was a perfect summer read. My next summer challenge read was, and this one was kind of hard. Okay, well, not the book was hard, but for a diverse, inclusive read, I'm just plugging, again, when I suggested things in here, it was kind of because these authors, these books didn't go in any of the other categories I had suggested necessarily. So, but they were books I really wanted to read. So I picked Alicia Rye's The Right Swipe, and I blogged about that a couple times this summer. It was, again, a fun vacation read, but also very Alicia Rye. I mean, if you have read her romances before, I think there were some continuing characters from her other books. It dealt with kind of modern dating and some societal issues, and but still, some sexy romance too. So it was very fun. Let's see. The next one was something off my TBR list, and oh my gosh, I don't know. I think this book came out last year, 2018, maybe. I don't know why I waited so long to read this. It was a historical romance by Ava Lee. I read Temptations of a Wallflower, and this was one I posted about it on Instagram. If you follow me on Instagram stories is where my stream of consciousness comes out. So one night, and I was reading another book that I won't name because I still might pick it up and like it again, but I was in the middle of this one book, and I was like, it felt like a slog, I was like, I can't get through it. And I said, okay, Instagram friends, should I keep reading this? And the majority of people who responded was like, no, if it's a slog, put it down, try it later. Which is very good advice, because sometimes you pick it up and you try again later and you go, this is great. I just wasn't in the mood for it before, So I put that one down, and I went to my Amazon wish list. I'm like, what do I have in here that just spoke to me? And I had also seen the author, Ava Lee, talk about this book on Twitter. Maybe it was on sale. Maybe that's why it kind of popped out of my wish list too. Anyway, it is a historical romance with the male main character is a vicar, so like a pastor, and the female main character is she's a lady. She's like a earl's daughter or something, but she's also a secret writer of erotic novels. But so I mean, that sets up a conflict pretty well, but there's just so much to it. And it was so well written, and I think my heart squeezed itself inside out. All right, the next one was a comfort read. I already said I thought The Southern Side of Paradise could be a comfort read. Another one I read that I love so much was Life and Other Inconveniences by Kristen Higgins and Nina Bocci's On the Corner of Love and Hate. And there's something you can kind of, if you have at all followed these three books, you could probably see the similarities between these three and what makes them quote unquote a comfort read for me. I mean, they're multi-generational family, characters with history, small towns. I mean, there's community issues. I mean, each one of these has that in different aspects, but to me, that's just kind of what's comforting about them. So not too terribly much high drama, or at least if there is, it's resolved pretty quickly. It's not anyone like bombing Japan during World War II or something, right? So all three of those I enjoyed, and I felt comforted and warm-hearted about. A new genre. This was also a Twitter recommendation. I blogged about that this month, August. Every month I blog about some of the best books to read now. This month was kind of hard because I was splitting up all of my books between my reading challenge post and my Best Books to Read Now post, so it's all just read it all. Anyway, I blogged about it there. It was Empire of Sand by Tasha Suri, and I think she's also a debut author, and I'm pretty sure she's also an own voices author. This is a fantasy romance, probably just tilting a little bit more on the fantasy than the romance, but the romance is still significant enough that people who are looking for a fantasy romance, I don't think would be disappointed. It is a fantasy book that's set in another world that was based on the Mughal, I don't know if I'm saying this correctly, sorry, the Mughal Empire in India. Just really loved it, and I probably couldn't put it down for 2 or 3 days. And she's also, did I already say she's also a debut author? So really highly recommend that. And she's got a sequel to that coming out in November, so you'll probably hear me talk about it. Finally, my former Women with Books guest category. Like I already said, now Kristen Higgins qualifies as a former Women with Books guest. She wasn't when I read her book, but now she is. Also, I read, you guys, Sidelined by Suzanne Baltzar. So she was on the podcast last year promoting her debut book last year. It was Trouble Brewing. And now this is her second one. And I guess you could call it a series. They're connected. They have overlapping characters, but you could definitely pick up Sidelined if you haven't read Trouble Brewing and read it. No problem. Sidelined, though, was just, I thought it's the perfect book for this moment, this summer, because if y'all follow me on social media, I'm a big women's football fan. I watched the World Cup this season. I'm a big fan of the U.S. national women's team and their fight for equal pay. And so with all of that going on in the zeitgeist, and then you read this book, Sidelined, and the female main character is a woman football coach, American football coach. She's the first female coach at this high school, and she gets the job over, all these male candidates, and one of them is an assistant coach who also is single and very good looking. So this is a romance between a women's football coach and her assistant coach. And it just struck a chord with me. And Suzanne wrote it so perfectly. So good. She's really good at making this an issue, but also not. Read it. And if you read it, tell me what you think. Because on the one hand, it's an issue because you live in this world, that this should be a big deal, that this woman has this spot, and it's kind of discussed. But then also when you're seeing it through the eyes of the people there, you see it in a totally different way. I don't know, I just thought it was fantastic in all the different ways. And of course, I also said Christy Woodson Harvey was also a former Women with Books guest, but gosh, we've had so many of them. Y'all have no excuse for not picking one of them and reading their books. So that is the challenge. That's what I read. I read a little bit more than that, I think, but it's just kind of weird when I'm reading also things ahead of time and previewing them before they come out, and reading things that have not. So there were a lot more other things. Y'all know I read the Carrie Winfrey book. That was also debut author. But I think I didn't include her in this because I technically read it before summer started. So but I could have lied and told y'all I read it this summer. But I think it was this May or April. Anyway, so I hope whatever you did, if you completed the challenge or you didn't complete the challenge, that you had a fantastic reading summer. And as always, I would love to hear what you read and what you thought about it and what you were planning to read. And so let's move on. As many of you longtime listeners know, I produce this podcast in so-called quote-unquote seasons. Basically, I do 10, or I have done in the past, 10 to 15 episodes, and then take a break I assess my schedule, I contact my guests, I read books, and I refresh, and then I start it all over again. I've contemplated not doing it that way, but and just like taking it, I'm going to keep producing episodes from here until infinity, but I can't. And we'll kind of talk about why I can't. But so this being, I think, episode 50 of Women with Books, I thought, okay, it's end of summer. We're going to call the season right here. This is the last episode of season 4. I know, don't cry. But thank you for being here and listening and being part of this community. Like I said before, I've been doing a lot of thinking and reading this season, and I have a few things on my mind as I embark on this seasonal break. And I thought I would just explain to you where I'm coming from and what's on my mind and why I'm taking this break and what you could expect when I come back. Okay. So one reason why I'm taking a break is I've got a new book coming out. The Royal Bodyguard is the second in my Dreedish series. It's releasing from Headline in the UK in November. And so if you're interested in learning more about that, make sure you're watching my Lindsay Emory social media or subscribe to either my Women with Books or Lindsay Emory newsletters. And so when a new book comes out, I have to kind of give some attention to that. And so that's one reason why I'm like, I'll just take the break from the podcast right now, spend a couple months kind of loading up my well for a book release. I'm also writing a new book, and I've been talking about that a little bit. I'm so excited about this project. I can't really tell you much more about it other than every time I write something sometimes and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is going to be so perfect to talk to the podcast about. I would love for y'all to read it as soon as possible. So that's why I'm putting a pause in some activities and really focusing on getting this book done and getting out as soon as possible. I'm also going to be traveling this fall. Again, follow my social media. You'll probably see where I end up. But when I travel, it's hard to keep up a production schedule and, also raise my family. So all of that's going on in the next 1 or 2 or 3 months. So that's why I'm kind of just saying, okay, this is a good break to kind of pause and see where I want to be for season 5 of Women with Books. It's been 2 years since I started Women with Books, and there have been a lot of changes in the publishing space. There's been a lot of education. There's been a lot of discussion about access, inclusion, diversity, equality, and frankly, I knew that 2 years ago when I started, and I wanted to make sure that whatever platform I built could address everything. And I'm still, every season, I'm assessing where my voice should fit into those discussions, if it should be there at all. As a white cishet author, when do I say things? When do I not say things? When do I step back and let other voices take the lead? How can I use this platform to serve the larger reader community? And the issues, quite frankly, that impact readers, which at the end of the day is books and access to books and discussion about books, and also encouraging the best books to be written, right? Because y'all don't want to have lesser quality. You don't want to have fewer numbers. So what can I do to make sure that I'm encouraging like this healthy space for the thing that we all love the most? There have also been, in the last 2 years, a lot more book podcasts that have joined me in the past 2 years. And I'll be honest, I'll be frank, these have changed how I approach my podcast. When I started this 2 years ago, it was me wanting to have real life conversations about the books I was reading. And now, I hesitate to admit this, but now I have a lot of those conversations on this podcast, of course, but also when I listen to the other book podcasts. And I know that sounds weird. I'm not really included in those conversations, but when I listen to Wicked Wallflowers or Smart Bitches, I am still like going, oh, yes, that's the thing I wanted to talk about. Oh, they're so smart. They already addressed it. And now I don't need to talk about that anymore. So a lot of times the things I had wanted to talk about have already been talked about. Does that make sense? And so then I have to ask myself, is there anything else I can bring to this conversation about X book or to Y guest? Like if I have them on Women with Books. And a lot of you guys will suggest authors and stuff to me. And I'm like, that would be awesome. I would love to talk to her. But however, she's also been on like 4 other podcasts. And I feel like all of the things have already been discussed. So I'm trying to make sure, is there anything else I can bring to this table? And because everyone else is killing it, sometimes I don't think I can. They've killed it. And I will suggest those podcasts to everyone. I do that a lot in my Women with Books newsletter. If you're not already a subscriber, if there's something that's been like, wow, really awesome, I put that in the newsletter. I'm like, hey, go listen to these other podcasts because they're doing a fantastic job. And they had the conversation that I wanted to have, but they saved me a lot of time and trouble. And I don't think that's false humility or imposter syndrome. I mean, when I say that, I stop myself and I'm like, okay, really? You don't think you could bring anything else to the table? Why are you saying that? But I don't, most of the time I don't, because I really do respect and admire, and I'm a big fan of all these other podcasts. So yeah, I think they're doing a great job. So that kind of takes me back to like kind of an existential question about if I want to be more than a marketing platform. I want to be more than, when we used to have blog tours. I want to be more than just like you do a podcast tour. I want to kind of find something new to say and find something to say that interests me. So I think taking a break in the season is a really good way for me to kind of stop, evaluate, and say, am I doing the best I can for you guys? Am I bringing you the best of me? Because if I'm bringing you what everyone else has, then, it's kind of a waste of my time. I kind of think of it as we're all going to a potluck dinner and we were all asked to bring a side, and we show up and we all brought like a nice green leafy salad, which is beautiful and very healthy, but not all of that green salad's going to be eaten. So we need to also have like some macaroni. We need to have like a good bag of Cheetos. We also need to have like a bean salad. We all need to be bringing something to the table that is awesome and also what we're best at. I hope that makes sense. So I just want whatever I create to have value to you and me. And as a creative person, I don't want to add to noise. And I think about this a lot when I write my books, and because I want whatever I write to be something that only I can produce. That kind of brings me to my next thing, which is I've been doing a lot of thinking about content. And this is sort of related to, a potluck dinner where we're all bringing potatoes or salad or whatever. And my episode a couple months ago with Lauren Lane really coalesced a lot of my thoughts about this. I'm worried that we, readers, authors, are getting to a place, and y'all are going to think I'm crazy, but I'm worried that we're getting to a place where there's too much content to consume. I know, it's crazy. Some of y'all are looking at me right now like, I don't think that exists. That would never happen. But some of y'all are like, yeah, I identify with that. And when I say this, I'm including books. When I talk about content, I'm including books. I'm including social media, broadcast television, Netflix, HBO, Hulu, podcasts, Apple TV, Amazon, audiobooks, the news, etc., etc. Personally, I'm not complaining yet. This is one of my favorite parts of living in the 21st century. I'm constantly stimulated with new ideas, new escapes. And I love that if I want a vicarious adventure or a love affair or a riotous comedy, I can have it whenever, wherever I want. So I'm not complaining about all that content yet. But as a writer and podcaster, I am a content producer, and I want to make sure that whatever I do isn't just noise. I want to make sure that I'm bringing my best self to the table. So these are the things that I'm thinking about. In sum, I hope this makes sense. I try my hardest to make sense. But like I said, I've been thinking a lot about this. RWA, I started talking to some people and thinking about things, and I just want y'all to understand. So when I come back and there might be like a little change here and there, or I've, tweaked something, you'll know why. It's because I'm just trying to get better. In sum, I'm going to spend the next month or two checking in with myself to make sure that I'm bringing my voice and efforts to something worthwhile to the community, that whatever I do is going to be creative, original, and interesting to you, because you guys matter to me. I don't see you. I can't see you listening, whatever you're doing, but I know you're out there, and I appreciate you. And I appreciate when you sign up for my newsletter. And, that'd be a good idea. If you're not, I keep talking about it, but if you're not, subscribe, because then when I come back, you'll be the first to know. That's awesome. Okay. As always, I'd love to hear your thoughts, ideas, suggestions. You could do that through my newsletter or through my social media. I'm mostly on Instagram these days. I just have to turn off Twitter, honestly, and Facebook. Again, when I talk about noise, Facebook turns into noise for me very quickly. So if I go on, I see a notification. If it's from like you guys, I will check it, but I don't I try not to scroll because it just does a number with me. So, but I can go on Instagram, and again, if I see a notification, I'm much more likely to spend a little time and do some chatting. So, make sure, I already said this, newsletter, so you know when season 5 starts, and that's that. Like I said, I hope you've had a fantastic summer. I hope it gets cool wherever you are right now, and, send me your suggestions, who you want to see in season 5. I've already got kind of a rough list, but I haven't reached out to anyone yet, so they might all tell me no. So, and I might not even be thinking of something really cool that you guys bring up. So, I love y'all, and you know what I always say, keep reading. Thank you for joining me today. If you love this conversation, please leave a review or consider supporting the podcast at the link in the show notes. For a list of books discussed in this episode and other fabulous content, sign up for my newsletter at womenwithbooks.com. And remember, keep reading.